Hi everyone, welcome to Sports Stories SS15. This is Lucas, and if you follow us on Twitter, you'll know that our next guest is a ex-Superleague netball player, current teacher, Vicklyn Joseph. So she'll have a lot of things to tell you about her time as a netball player and any other things that she's gone through. So welcome, Vicklyn. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on your podcast today.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. So just to start off with, would you tell us a bit about yourself and your experiences in sport from an early age and upwards?
Like you said, I'm currently a PE teacher, and I've been playing netball. I would say, probably from the age of 11. My first ever experience when I was in year 6, going into high school in year 7. Having regular training sessions, etc. But I would say when I got like proper exposure to coaches externally, I would say that would be from the age of 15, and I've been playing literally netball competitively since the age of 15 up until like Christmas just gone, so only recently stopped playing.
Okay.
And yeah, I think all I've ever done all my life is played sport. I've played obviously a number of different sports, but netball has always been my main focus and the main sport that I've played. And I've played at different levels. So obviously I started playing at high school and representing obviously my high school netball team through to sixth form. And through that played Middlesex competitions, national competitions through my school. And then through my external clubs, I would play at, again, county level, regional level. Then I got into playing Super League. I've also had the opportunity to represent England back in 2010, which was a massive experience for me. I think my journey through netball has been a relatively successful one and a very enjoyable one. So yeah, that's me.
So when did you get into Super League and then obviously England through school, or was it external and then playing regional? Is that like the pathway that you go through to get all the way to the top for the people that don't know?
Yeah, so I think I got my opportunity to play for Super League without the connection from school. Basically, when you're playing at school, you could get scouted, but that's not really the traditional way of being successful through let's say the netball journey, for example. It would have to be through an external coach, an external club. So the club that I played for from the age of 15 was Academy Netball Club based in West London. And it was through there where you played competitions both at county and regional level, where then you could then be told from your coaches to go to particular trials, which is what I did. And then when you went to trials, if the coaches obviously liked what they saw, then they would recruit you for Super League. That was sort of the journey that I took. So I was playing for my external club. One of my really good friends, like a best friend of mine, actually spoke to her coach. The team that she was playing for at the time was Bruno Hurricanes. Right. So they're known as Surrey Storm now, but back in the day they were Bruno Hurricanes based at Bruno University. And she spoke to her coach, told her about myself, me being a goal shooter, which is a position that they needed covered for. And I came to a trial. I don't perform greatly in really like pressured situations. Yeah, 100%, because she knew. I knew she was literally just going to be staring at me for the whole trials. So I didn't actually. Yeah, just watching me alone. I didn't trial properly. It was probably the worst trial I've ever had in my whole entire career. Yeah. And then my coach, the coach at the time, spoke to me and just said, actually, like I want to probably just see you over the next few training sessions.
Oh, so she gave you a chance afterwards.
Yeah, 100%. My friend speeched it massively. She went up to the coach afterwards, like, so Vicklyn didn't trial well. Mine, like, into the next few sessions and seeing how she progresses with us as a team, etc. Luckily, she obviously gave me those opportunities, and then I was a lot calmer, a lot more relaxed, and like showed my true talent. and then obviously I got selected into that team and was playing for Brunel Hurricanes for a number of years. And it was through that I progressively went from Brunel Hurricanes to Hertfordshire Mavericks. That's also known now as Saracen Mavericks.
Okay.
And obviously played Super League for, oh gosh, I want to say at least 10 years plus.
Yeah, that's good. So how old are you when for that trial?
So I was about 19
Okay.
to turning 20. Yeah, so I was at university going for that trial. Yeah, and then was successful and continued playing throughout my university years.
And is that process still like the same now, or has much changed like over the years? So, you know, the process of going through regional and stuff, or obviously you got a word of mouth and got to a trial, but does that stuff still happen now, or is it a bit different now?
I think it's massively different now. I think for you to get into a Super League franchise, it used to be, back in my day, it used to be open trials. It will be broadcasted or advertised, a series of dates where anyone who wished to go to a Super League trial, it was open to all. And you would just go, pay your sub, and obviously be seen over a minimum of 2 or 3 sessions, and then they will pick a squad from there. Nowadays, it's all done behind closed doors, and the pathway tends to be with these franchises. They've got things called hubs, academies, and younger age groups. So you've got, let's say for example, if you're talking about Mavericks, you will have a Mavericks journey hub where it goes from under 17s, under 19s, under 21s, and then the senior team, which is obviously the one that you'll see on Sky Sports, etc. So I would say the journey nowadays to get to that level would be you being in one of those earlier age groups and then working your way up. In terms of you rocking up to a trial and getting seen,
that doesn't happen nowadays.
Oh, no.
Would you say why would you say that is? Is it because obviously I've always known about netball, like even throughout school, but only recently have I seen it on Sky Sports and stuff like that. Like it wasn't really as popular then, and now you're seeing it more and more. Would you say that kind of has an influence, like more people, I guess, are more aware of it, so they've got more people to pick from, or would you say that they'd had to change it anyway?
I think it is a shame that they've changed it, because there are some players that I know that play for, I don't know, a Premier side netball club, who are just as good, if not better, than some of the players that you might see on Sky Sports now. I think with the introduction of these hubs and these academies at a younger age group, a lot of it is money orientated. Right? Let's not hide around the truth. A lot of these young girls are having their parents paying an X amount of money to affiliate to these franchise for a season. And because netball, don't get me wrong, I fully agree, it is on the rise. You're seeing it a lot more, you're hearing about it a lot more, especially after we won Commonwealth gold 3 years ago. It is definitely spoken of a lot more, but the money behind it all is still not high enough. So they have to try and accumulate this money from somewhere, and getting these hubs in from younger girls and getting their parents to affiliate these girls into these hubs generates the money in order for them to do what they can with the senior team and get the exposure that they obviously can do with the senior teams. But in terms of your random netballer who may have the skills, being able to walk into a franchise at the senior level, doesn't happen. Nah.
It's a shame, really, because obviously people like you would have, like, that's how you got there, you know? So people can't do the same nowadays. Do you think, how much, obviously as a teacher, like you I'm guessing you coach netball at schools and stuff like that. Is there an increase in interest in it, like, that you've noticed, or not so much? Do you think that has influence, or?
I think so I work in a private sector, so I work for a private school. So, I mean, I've had the opportunity to work in the state and the private sector, and they're two very different worlds. I think with the current school that I'm working in now, the girls jump at these opportunities, and the opportunities come flooding their way because their parents are paying for their education. So we've got, I feel obligated, because I'm head of netball at my school, I feel obligated be opening up these opportunities for these girls, because rightly so, their parents are expecting a certain level of matches, exposure for like professional players to come in and coach their girls as well. I think their opportunities are way more than what a girl might be offered at a state school, because like I said, I've done both. And I would normally, let's say at my first school that I started working at after I graduated with my teacher's degree, we would train once a week. That's it. It will be all age groups, year 7 up to year 13, train on one day. Whereas now in my private school, you're training before school, lunchtime, and having fixtures nearly every week after school.
Very serious.
So yeah, 100%.
And competitive, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that obviously you came when you were going through that process, you were at a state school, right?
Yeah.
So do you feel like coming up through that there was any difficulties being from a state school competing against people, I'm guessing, who are coming from private schools? Do you feel like there was difficulties in that area?
Yeah, 100%. I think I was very fortunate that I had coaches and PE teachers around me that helped me on my netball journey. My parents, I'm not saying that they weren't supportive, but they probably didn't encourage my involvement in sport. So when I got to competitions or had to get to tournaments, it wasn't my mum or dad driving me there. It was actually, or it was parents of some of my teammates. Yeah, so I was very lucky that I had, let's say, like a netball family that helped me to get to matches and give me the exposure to netball. I don't think that is typically what happens with girls who come from a state school. The way the system is set up now in terms of hubs and academies, personally, financially, I wouldn't be able to do that now.
Yeah. But
a lot of these independent girls who are very fortunate, who have parents who are probably a lot more financially stable, paying a season's worth of fees. I'm not saying it's easy to them, but it's easier than maybe someone who's obviously come from a state school background. If I was, let's say, 15 now, I wouldn't be anywhere near that or getting opportunities. No way.
What other difficulties do you feel like you face, like individually, just coming up through that? So obviously you mentioned about private schools and state schools, and your parents not necessarily being able to take you to games and stuff like that. What other things was it that was difficult for you?
I would say,
and also not just in netball, like even in anything else, like teaching and things like that, just on your way up, like through those experiences, is there anything that you've found difficult and you've had to get through?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I've taught, when I first got my degree, I taught at a state school for 8 years. And I absolutely loved my job as being a PE teacher. And that was, one of the main reasons why I became a PE teacher, was because of one of the PE teachers that taught me when I was at school. And it's funny enough, the school that I went to from year 7 up to year 13 was the same school that I went back to teach 4 years later. So it was weird at first, because a lot of teachers I'll be calling a few years back, and now obviously I'm on the first name. Exactly. So that was weird, but once we got over that, it was absolutely fine, and obviously things were professional, etc. But then I would say some of the challenges that I faced was my career progression. Personally, my experience wasn't a pleasant one. I feel like I was always seen to be given opportunities whenever it was a sporting environment. So I sort of led the netball in the Ealing Borough, because that's where the school that I worked in. And but when I tried to develop my career pastorally, so becoming either like a deputy head of year or a head of year, I would always get stuck at one hurdle. I was probably a deputy head of year for about 4 years, but I went for several promotions to be head of year. And I just would never ever get it. The people that were getting it over me were either males or no one who was black. And it was very noticeable when it keeps happening over and over again, and you're thinking, okay, hold on now, there has to be a reason as to why this is not happening, because I know I'm producing really good answers in my interviews, because when I'm having feedback, there's not really much feedback in order for me to progress or get better for the next you. And you just can't help but start to look at the trend and start looking at, oh, the image of these people that are now all heads of years or members of SLT, they all look very similar, and I don't fit that mold. So I can't change my image. I can't change the complexion of my skin. That was when it got to a point where I knew I had to move on and start actively looking for a new job in another school. So yeah, I had people that I would start the same year. Like, funnily enough, myself and another colleague came into that school same year because we went to the same university together. By the time I left that school, he was a member of SLT.
Really?
And I was still stuck at deputy head of year. And he was male and he was white. I'm female and I'm black. And it was just very, very noticeable. It's just that people just didn't really speak about it.
Is there anything you felt like you could have done about it at the time, or was your best option just to kind of move on and kind of find your own way?
The type of school that I worked in, you couldn't, personally, there was no one that I felt that I could turn to that was in I would say, a leadership role higher up than me that I felt comfortable talking to about it.
Right.
It was a very clear divide, and it was like these members of staff are in a circle. Even if there was a member of staff that you could talk to on a Friday evening in a professional environment, then come Monday morning, it went back to, no, they're SLT, they're above you. There's a hierarchy system. So I knew, for me personally, I didn't feel comfortable talking to anyone other than people in my department. Knowing that it was in a safe space in my department, it probably wouldn't go anywhere else for it to be heard and then acknowledged and maybe acted on. But I would then get it off my chest and then have to get on with the next day. So ultimately for me, I thought that the only thing that I could do is just move on.
Did you feel like it was just a racial thing, or do you feel like gender played a role, or have you noticed that elsewhere in other jobs or other situations?
I think for me, my personal experience, it was more so race, because if someone else would get a promotion, it might be, and not when I say race, I'm not saying that everyone else who was higher up pastorally or in terms of management were all white. It might be Asian women, for example, but they perceived themselves in such a way. There was probably only one black member of SLT, a female science teacher, but she was very fair skinned. Like, no one looked like me, and no, I couldn't relate to anyone in those higher, in like powerful or managerial roles, for example. So for me, I thought it was more to do with race. I think this is actually quite a funny story, actually. I can laugh at it a little bit now, but when at the time, back in 2008, when I applied for this job, my dad's Grenadian, my mum's Jamaican. They were both born in the West Indies. And in my interview, I actually said ox instead of R. Because obviously household where
that's how they say it.
Exactly. And many years later, I actually got told that I nearly didn't get the job because of that.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was told from my head of department at the time that she had to sort of like fight my case. The deputy head of the school said, can we really employ someone who says ox?
Yeah.
And the head of PE at the time had to actually say, to be honest, Vicklyn, like, look at her credentials. Like, on paper, we need her in this school. Like, she's got obviously ounces of experience in terms of her playing career, what she can bring to the school, etc., etc. And I feel like she had to speech it for me to be able to get the job. So it's to do with my culture, to do with my race. I do think I faced a few barriers in that school.
What do you think can be done about it? Is there much that can be done, do you think? Or is there an individual thing for those individuals, or do you think there's much that can be done about it?
I think there's a lot that can be done, but it has to come from a place where people are actually willing to, one, first of all, be educated and learn, and be willing to change. Personally, the school that I'm talking about, I think a lot of the managerial teachers that were there at the time has significantly changed. I don't think a lot of them are still there. And I'm not too sure if they've got the right mindset of actually being open-minded in terms of the different cultures and experiencing those enough in the workplace. There's always room for change, but it's whether or not people are willing to allow it to happen.
Definitely.
And the only way that can actually happen is, one, like being educated, and two, being in a position where you're going to give people from different backgrounds, different cultures, different nationalities, different genders, different sexualities, those opportunities in these particular positions. If you're not open to that, then there is going to be zero change.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. Just quickly to go back to sport, what about when you played for England? How did that process work? And do you feel like there was similar things in the netball, going through up the ranks and to try to get to a higher stage with that, or was it slightly different?
Yeah, so I was playing Superleague and Mavericks for a number of years, and we were doing really good in terms of matches, and you would have England selectors watching some of these Super League matches and approaching some individuals, and it was in the year that we won the championships, yeah, best night of my life winning that, I was actually invited by email to come to some of the training sessions and some of the trials. I would say that I was probably trialing and in the England system, we would normally call it, where you're training with girls who represented England quite regularly for about 2 or 3 years. And then every time there was a competition coming about, you would do like an internal trial of all the England girls who were training together. 1 year for I think it was for a European championship, so you got the opportunity to play against Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales. And I, unfortunately, technically I didn't get in. I was like girl number 13 and they were taking 12 girls. But one of the shooters got injured the week leading up to the competition. So I got a phone call randomly on the Friday while I was at work saying, girl X has obviously got injured. Would you be able to drive to Wales tonight? The competition starts tomorrow morning, because it was a weekend competition. I was like, hell yeah, I'm leaving school right now. Like literally. So I literally left work, went home, packed, drove all the way. I don't even know. I can't remember how I managed to Wales by myself, drove all the way to Wales, and then luckily got that opportunity and got that spot to say that, yeah, I physically was in an England netball dress on the court playing, and we actually won that competition as well. So that's the only first and only time that I actually physically like represented England, but I would say that I was in the system for about 3 years, trialing and training with the England girls.
You got lucky with your break and then you managed to play, which is good.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to kind of like wrap it up with the question, I always ask a question at the end. I've asked my previous guests. Just on sport, do you feel like sport is something that defines you? And also, where would you be without sport? Do you feel like you'd still be a teacher, just maybe in a different area? Do you feel like you'd be in a completely different profession?
100% sport defines me. I know I'm a mother now, and obviously I probably don't get the opportunity to play as much netball as I would like, but if I didn't have netball in my life, I wouldn't be the person I am now. I probably wouldn't be a PE teacher, because it was my involvement in sport, and my main bunch of friends are all the girls who I played netball with. So I don't even think I would be a teacher in another area. I probably would have a very different career if it wasn't for my involvement in sport in so many aspects of my friends, my partner who also is involved in sport, and me physically playing sport for how long. If that was to be taken out of my life, I would be half the person I am now.
I'm the same. I've played sport since I've been a baby, and I think a lot of people, everyone can almost has a sporting experience, like everyone, and a lot of people are still involved in it as they get older, can't really see anything else, like anything going the same way if they weren't involved, because it's one of those things that once you start it, you're always going to be attached to it somehow. It's around everyone and you can't get away from it.
No, definitely. I
Do you
agree.
feel like it's something that's a good thing? Like, would you want it any other way, or are you happy with how things have gone and how things are gonna go?
100% happy. I think there's obviously been knockbacks and challenges that I've faced, but sometimes I personally feel like those are little blessings that you need to
Yeah,
learn from, helps
yeah,
you to become a better person in at the end of it all. It hasn't been plain sailing, but nothing ever is in life, and I would definitely want to pursue a similar type opportunity for my little boy. Like,
yeah,
already I've got him going to like rugby, football, like already, and
yeah,
he's what,
yeah,
two and a
good.
half. So I can't envision sport not being involved in my life
Mm.
and not being involved in my little boy's life as well. So I wouldn't want it any other way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it kind of helps you, even with you saying about the setbacks. Like, sport is kind of a mirror, if you like in some ways, like the things that you go through in sport, the not getting into trials or missing out on opportunities and
Yeah,
kind of having to keep going and get through it to get to the next stage is kind of what you have to do in everyday life and in
yeah.
different areas.
I try to like explain this to the girls who I work with in my independent school. A
Mm,
lot of these girls, because of their environment, they don't get told no.
mm,
They get told whatever you want in life,
you can get it.
talk about it, and you can get it, trust
Yeah,
me. So when they are unsuccessful and they don't get scouted for a team that I've picked, or they don't get captaincy or whatever, they're
mm,
not used to me telling them no. And
yeah,
I have to really like enforce on them and encourage and remind them that you're going to get setbacks in life. You might apply to a university and get told no,
mm,
you haven't got it, or you might go for a job interview, no, you haven't got it. But trying to deal with it now through sport will help you
mm,
understand, okay, things are not going to get given to me on a plate, but what can I do to learn about this in order for me to deal with the possible setback or possible failure or someone telling me no later on in life.
mm.
So I think it's a massive learning curve, and it's something that is so easily done through the journey of sport.
I think so. A lot of, like, as I said, I've spoken to other people on similar. Well, I've asked them all a similar question, and we always come to a similar conclusion. Like, sport is one of those things that kind of helps you through everything, and it makes you learn a lot about what you're going to experience, and also about yourself and how you're going to deal with difficult situations and get through them. So I agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Just to wrap up, thank you very much for coming on. I'm sure there's a lot of people can take something from it, and obviously I haven't had a lady on before, so it's nice to speak
Oh,
about
wow.
some things that other people can't really relate to. So I'm sure that there'll be people that can take a lot from it. So
Oh,
thank you
no,
for
I
coming
really
on.
appreciate you giving me this opportunity. It's really
Yeah.
nice.
So everyone, thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. Keep an eye out on our Twitter page and our Instagram page for more podcasts. And thank you very much, Vicklyn, for coming on.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.